Greetings, dear ones. I am KRYON of Magnetic Service. We told you last week that these particular channelings will be about perception, rewriting perhaps certain paradigms of how you feel when you see things. The planet really truly is going from a linear position of consciousness to one that is far, far more, I would say, multidimensional, you might say more aware. When you move out of the linearity of consciousness where things are a certain way and you do things certain ways and you react certain ways and you've done it forever, when you move away from that position, truly, it is an awareness that is taking place. That's the best way we can describe it. But whatever it is, it's different. That's the subject of these 4 weeks. Different paradigms of reaction to certain kinds of things. This particular lesson, this particular channeling, what I want to talk about is the paradigm of your reaction to predictions. Now, you may not think that, or say even that you're aware of any reactions. Oh, yes, you are. You just don't think about it much. You simply react a certain way, and it's very, very linear. I'll give you an example, even before the teaching begins here, in this particular channeling. It was in 2021, on one of the social media platforms, that I then identified the name of the year. And I said it would be the year of revelation. And then in 2022, it was time again for me to reveal the name of the year, as I do every year. But it was the same. I said it was the year of revelation continued. Now, that should have triggered some kind of response, but instead of an awakened response, here is the kind of response I got. And you said, well, wait a minute, it can't be the same. You have to change it every year. That's a linear response. And then on the other side it said, well, you keep talking about revelations. Where is the revelation? That is a linear response because you're expecting an event, a oneness of something that happens that you can point to say, oh, that's the revelation. Let me ask you something. You see any changes in integrity or how people react or what they want that has happened in the last 2 years, 21, 22? And if you say no, you've been in the closet, dear ones, because the entire world has been in a new paradigm of reaction to things that are happening. Are you aware of what happened this year, the first part of the year, where the entire planet, you can say, almost voted for no war? It's the first time when war has begun where the earth has not polarized itself and turned into a world war. Do you realize that? Would you consider that a revelation? A revelation of consciousness that's changed. This planet wants peace. That's what you want. This planet is invested in no war. And when it happened, it was such a shock. That's a revelation. I told you some years ago that when the light started coming out, there would be those who want to pull it backwards to the way it was. Did you see it? Did you see it? Have there been any other things that nobody ever expected, or they said that could not happen in the fact of integrity on this planet? Or the fact that things matter more than what you're seeing in a culture? What about the women? who have started an uprising a month or so ago because of the death of another young woman, because things simply were not right in that country. They were being suppressed in that country, and they reacted. And what makes that revolutionary a revelation is you just don't do that in that country. Especially women don't do that. And suddenly they are. Would you think perhaps for a moment that was a revelation? It's all through your society. It's beginning. Things are starting that mean things to people, that never meant things to people before. And the reactions are there. This isn't right. That isn't right. We've got to do this or that differently. This has got to stick this time. That's what we're seeing. And it doesn't happen on a monthly schedule. And it doesn't matter whether there's a New Year's coming or going. This shift that you're experiencing, dear ones, is massive. You've had 2 years of revelation. Perhaps this next one I'll identify a little differently. Perhaps I won't. Maybe it'll continue. Now you know why I said what I said. Now, what about your perception of predictions in general? I want to talk about that. Because you're having such a linear reaction to some things that are happening on a regular basis, and I want to discuss it with you. If just to make you think about it, there's some wonderful things happening on this planet. And yet, there are those invested in telling you that bad things are going to happen. And some of them do it on a regular basis. And some of them, in the guise of spirituality, have been doing it for some time. And it goes like this. There's going to be a collapse of this or that. There's going to be an event happening in a certain city at a certain time. Stay away from this, beware of this. And there are some syndicated programs, perhaps. That would be a program that is seen in many places, where they will come on and tell you these things. And almost every time they'll say it, the reaction is fear. Now, that was planned. Whether they know it or not, that was planned. So you'll keep watching. Are you getting this? And then tell me what happens next. I'll let you talk. I'm listening. Oh, really? You mean those things didn't happen? They didn't happen on a regular basis. How many of you are aware of all of these predictions? Most don't happen. And yet, and here's the reaction I want you to examine. You go right back to the source and listen for more. I think that paradigm is going to start to change. I would like to speak to those making those predictions. You're going to have to be responsible if they don't happen, especially if they're doom and gloom on a regular basis and they don't happen. It's time to hold those responsible. And there are a few ways you can do that. And one is to ask them why it didn't happen. And the second one is to unsubscribe. You see where this is going? I want you to examine the whole idea of those who wish to frighten you so you'll stay subscribed. If you now perhaps see that pattern, you might treat it differently. It's something that this planet is working on even as I speak now. There are certain news, I would say, outlets that are starting to rethink how they give the news. It's starting to occur. Look for new news outlets that will be different because of how they give it to you. The same news given in a way that won't frighten you. As frightening as these things are on the planet, there's always some things that are not. There are always some things to give you which are good and promising, hopeful and heartfelt. What if the news started with something heartfelt instead of something awful? If you ask them why they don't do that, they'll say, well, we want to grab everybody early so they'll stay tuned. So they'll watch the commercials. Is this really what you want? Is this the way of it for you? Here is that new perception. Start listening to the way things are given and not the information that is given. Start looking at patterns that you may not have seen before or recognized in those who you watch regularly or listen to regularly. One of the patterns that you'll see here for 33 years is this one. There is love on this planet. I'm going to tell you about that. And my partner's going to continue till his last breath. That we'll win. That light is going to win eventually on this planet, but it's time for you to take the reins of your perception and your perspectives and start seeing the patterns that are there and understanding the agendas that might be behind them. Love is an agenda. I have that. Beauty, kindness, compassion is an agenda. I have that. And that has been the way of it since we began all those years ago when we wanted to tell you a truism. Dear ones, the shift is here that we were talking about. And part of that shift is an awakening of perceptions about life as you know it. I'm KRYON, in love with you all. And so it is.